Good morning and welcome to the webinar. My name is Al Simmons and I'm part of the sales team here at Teamwork Digital in London. We're a specialist photographic retailer, and as a company have been serving the UK industry for over 50 years. We partner with a broad scope of brands across a fair variety of different applications. You can see some of them there. We support photographers both in the studio and in the field with professional and non-professional specialist photography equipment. So the reason I'm here today is to have a conversation with Joe Cornish, which is going to act as a build-up towards a workshop that we're doing in November together up in Northumberland, which is Joe's stomping ground. We really wanted to kind of just have a chat about that area and Joe's experience of photographing it over the years, and use it as a way to build up towards that workshop in a few months' time. Joe himself doesn't really need much introduction. It's safe to say he's one of the world's most admired landscape photographers. So I'm definitely excited to be speaking to him today, and even more excited to be working together on the workshop in the autumn. So I will bring Joe into the room and we can have our conversation. There we go. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Al. Good to see you.
Yes. No, thanks for taking the time to do this. It's been a little while since we've had a chat with everything going on, but I hope you're well.
I am well. And in fact, the last time we met was, I think, was it the beginning of March in 2020?
It could have been just, I think, right on the cusp of the whole outbreak, if I remember right.
It was. So here we are. We all learned to use this kind of video communication, but hopefully get back to real life before long.
Yes. Have you been able to keep up and running with your photography at a fairly full speed throughout it all?
Yes. The first month and a half, I'd say, was the only period where I felt that, although in theory legally I could have gone out with my camera, I felt it wasn't really in the spirit of things then. So I was a bit incarcerated at that point. But yes, since then I've been able to carry on. And I suppose from a work point of view, I've done a lot fewer workshops, as you'd expect, because of the pandemic. But in terms of commission work, there's been a lot on, and I've completed a book on Humphrey Repton, for example. And I've also continued to do commissions for the National Trust locally at Fountains Abbey. And that has been a really huge time-consuming project. So I've had lots to enjoy and keep going on.
Almost the perfect time to have a big project to work on, because it's been such a kind of static time. Nice to kind of, how much of your year is usually workshops?
Yeah, about half really. So in some ways, ironically, it's really worked out well for me. I mean, not that I would wish a pandemic on anyone, but in terms of having more time to focus on my own photography and photography I've done for commissions, that's been really, really good. And I have done a lot of personal work as well, or what you could say that's more just indulgent, what I enjoy doing on my own, which is mainly wandering around in the woods with a camera.
Yeah. Well, you've kind of shared some of those images, so it's been an opportunity to kind of localize your photography a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that at the beginning of 2020, I had quite a comprehensive program for the next 2 years with polar tours, expedition tours on board ship. And the usual kind of workshops in the north of England, and actually almost all of them were cancelled. I've done a few since June of last year, but certainly 2020 was a complete wipeout almost in terms of workshops. So big drop in income, but I guess I'm at that sort of end of my career where it's not as problematic as it might be if I was younger. Well,
we originally had this workshop that we've now got booked for November. I think it was going to be similar time in 2020, and then we wondered whether to do it in 2021. And it just feels the start of this year has been slightly more optimistic, and certainly personally it felt nice to get that in the diary and feel like we can get back to some well, having something exciting on the horizon rather than it just being a kind of doubtful time.
Yeah,
So I'm really excited about it.
exactly. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to be sharing some of your images today of well, a few different a few areas along the Northumberland coast, but then we do have some which are some of those woodland images that you've been making over the last 2 years now. So we'll we've got a number of images that we can look at, and it would be obviously great to hear your context on that. But maybe just going back to the beginning, how long have you lived in the Northeast? Because obviously this is where you're based, where we're going to nearby where we're doing the workshop. How long has that been your home turf, as it were?
Yeah, since November 26, 1993. So there you go.
Well, there you go.
One date I can remember. And I do remember that because partly because it was November, and when we arrived at the house, there was a foot of snow in the garden. So, and that has hardly happened in November since then. I sort of often, it felt to me like that was like the end of the ice age in a way, and the beginning of climate change. Of course it wasn't, but it was just symbolically, it still sort of feels a bit like that to me. North Yorkshire, historically has enjoyed quite a lot of snow in the winter. In recent years, it like everywhere else in the country, it's had a lot less as the winters have become milder. And occasionally when we do get snow, it's really, really exciting because as a landscape photographer, it's one of the things you live for.
Yeah, all that negative space. I like it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the vegetation. Just the beauty of it is really it's transformational, obviously.
Yeah. And was it an area that you knew before you moved there? What was it that took you there?
Yeah, the reason was partly, children, we had one child and another on the way. At the time, Jenny was very keen not to bring up children in London, mainly for air quality reasons. I mean, she's very much the committed environmentalist. I'd like to say I am as well, but I'd say she's even more so than I am, and wanting to live as healthily as possible. So for me, there was, we'd already, because her mum lives nearby, we used to, while we were, our early years of courting, we were up in North Yorkshire. I'd really come to love it, and so when we decided we wanted to make the move, it was one of the obvious places to look at, and it's proved to be a wonderful home.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been up to Northumberland once, and it was certainly a coastal trip, but and maybe now's a good time to have a look at some of your, let's say, inland images. But that was the one thing that really struck me as well, is, there's obviously this beautiful coastline, but as an area, the inland kind of forest areas as well are, quite, I think, almost a hidden gem really in the country. That often a lot of attention's put to the Yorkshire Dales or the Lake District, but then just that little bit further northeast, it's quite a spectacular area.
I think the Northeast is incredibly underrated, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, I also, for anyone who's wondering, just to be clear, I live in North Yorkshire, so I'm just south of Teesside, which is Northumberland, although it is part of the ancient kingdom of Northumbria. So Northumberland coast, where we're going to be going, is just a couple of hours up the road, and it feels like a kind of region for us. So I think most people who live in the village where I am and feel that their identity is as much connected with the Northeast as opposed to North Yorkshire. And the Northeast, because it has an industrial heritage, which many people will, their only contact with it will have been travelling on the A19 across the River Tees and up through Sunderland and maybe through the Tyne Tunnel and then eventually on up to Edinburgh, because it's the main road or one of the main routes to Edinburgh on the A1. And the A19 gives us sort of an alternative route. And the A19 crossing Middlesbrough is sort of notoriously not beautiful. I don't want to use the U word because I don't want to offend anybody from Teesside. But it's and very, sadly, it's the kind of impression that many people from the south take away with them when they think of the Northeast, and then maybe they pass the huge sheds where Nissan is on the A19 further north, and the impression is not a really positive one. And yet you get away from that industrial kind of strip, and the natural landscape here is really amazing. The coast is extraordinary. Anywhere on the east coast, the area that I know is really north of the Humber and all the way up to the Scottish border. And then in terms of the woodland that you mentioned,
let's have some on screen. We can have something to base it on. Yeah.
And most of these, by the way, are from are really very close to home. So the North York Moors, which is, we think of the moorland, the plateau land of the moors with their, beautiful valleys. You don't necessarily think of trees and woodland, but 23% of the moors is covered in forest. Some of it is ancient forest, broadly. A lot of it is plantation, relatively contemporary, so 20th century coniferous plantation. But nevertheless, there's still these remnants of ancient woodland or woodland or trees, some of which are not incredibly old, but are fantastically characterful. So this one, for example, is a walking distance from home.
It's a particularly special picture, this. I like it a lot.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, since you're showing it, I can show you the camera that I shot it with, which I don't know if you can see that. That's nice. It's actually Phase 1A camera, so don't make it any longer, or at least they do, but Alpa makes it as a TC. Very, very simple.
I've always had a very soft spot for the Alpa TC.
Yeah, it's quite a special camera because it's so simple. It's a point and shoot, really, isn't it? I mean, you could say for the very high resolution one. That was shot with a Phase 1 back, but the reason it's actually you may not be able to tell this, but it's my tripod is considerably higher than I am at this point, and it's very awkward. And it's kind of one of those fun pictures to do, and because it's a local tree, and I understood the potential for the kind of graphic alignments in it on numerous previous visits, but I knew that for it to work, I would need very specific conditions, namely pretty thick fog. And so that opportunity did arise in 2020 when that picture was made.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I probably know the answer to this question, knowing a little bit about your sensibility, but are you someone who revisits locations that kind of, you have kind of ongoing relationships with the areas that you go to?
Yes, absolutely. I know everyone's different in their work practice, but for me, the familiarity is important, and I see it as a sort of form of craft, really. Also, every special moment is different. I mean, and here's the other thing about woodland, which I think is quite magical. And this is Duncan Park in the southwest part of the North York Moors, and it's only a very small fragment of woodland. But some of the trees here are very old. It's a mixture of sycamore, beech, ash, and lime, and yet there's young saplings coming up as well. And so that picture is a 20-second exposure. You might think it was made with frame averaging or something, but no, it was just really, really dark. So,
wow.
I think it's shot at f8, and since, if we're just looking at the photographic elements of it, it was made with this camera, Linhof Techno, and
slightly more technical than the Alpa.
Much more technical, and much heavier, unfortunately. So
good thing you're only 10 minutes from your house.
Well, yeah, this one's somewhat further from the house, but yes, I like I guess having reached my great age, I quite like the fact I had to carry a bit of weight around because it does help keep you fit too. So
yeah.
So here's a small technical anecdote. This picture is made with a little bit of swing, which is a movement that isn't always associated with landscape photography, where you're talking technical cameras. But it means that you can displace the zone of focus laterally in relation to the space, as opposed to a kind of typical drop plane like that. And in this way, I can join up the main points of focus. You could also argue, who cares, because that picture is so soft. Does it make any difference? However, it's soft because the wind is blown through the exposure, and But at the same time, I'm always interested in the idea of the contrast between sharp, fine detail, texture,
Yes.
and anything that's in motion.
Falling off into outer focus as well, and yeah, in this image, having the movement around the outside is it's a nice way of framing it. So I mean, it's in terms of looking at the cameras that you use, it's going to be a feature of the workshop that we're doing, and with our kind of specialism, it's going to kind of open up the opportunity to work with some phase one technical camera systems, and that we're going to be bringing along for the participants. But is that something that when you do workshops, do you find people really enjoy kind of being opened up if they're not already using a system like that? Kind of having that more technical process to work with. Do you find that something that people are quite receptive to?
Yes, I mean, it's a great question, and it's difficult to answer in briefly, because I think for some people the technicalities are actually a distraction, and probably not ideal. There's always solutions, of course, for everyone, and for others they will find it really intriguing. I definitely don't try to push using a technical camera in a general workshop, because I do feel it's a big ask. But at the same time, I do think that it's an important opportunity for anybody who really wants to push their landscape photography. It's not about levels so much as the enjoyment of the process. Some people don't want to face up to the difficulties of using a technical camera, but for others it gives them a new way to see, and the slowing down process is particularly important. I mean, that comes from using a tripod in the first instance, so with any camera you could use, but the technical camera, there's no choice. You have to use a tripod, really, and so it instills, it establishes that as your workflow slows you down, and it forces you to consider things with much more care, just because it's much more difficult to do, and that is a pleasure as well as a challenge, obviously. So I really enjoy it. It's not to say I don't enjoy using a simpler camera too. I do, but but given the time and the right kind of subject matter, and landscape, for the most part, is the right kind of subject matter, technical camera I think it can help deepen your relationship with the subject.
There's something quite nice about spending 30 minutes getting the right amount of tilt and swing to be able to compose one image, but then, as you say, it's sometimes, obviously there's a place for the camera you have in your pocket as well, that you can just get out and shoot.
No doubt.
Yeah, and if we do kind of move up and look more at the Northumberland coast, are there any, again, going back to that idea of kind of exploring locations fairly regularly, are there any particular of the areas along that coast that are your kind of favorite spots to go to, and where you've produced a lot of work over the years?
Well, I've done a book on the Northumberland coast, which I wrote myself as well. So as you can imagine, I spent a lot of time there over the years, especially in the 2000s, when I was working mainly with large format film. And since then, I've done many workshops there as well. So there are many favorite places, but there are some that are undoubtedly honeypots in the sense that they're popular with photographers, and for very good reason. Bamborough itself, where we'll be based, is one of those. Dunstanburgh as well, and Holy Island. All of these places have castles, which are a great sort of signature feature on the landscape. And so, they provide a good challenge, because they are popular subjects. So they're finding interesting ways of photographing them that you can genuinely say your own really help. This is Beulah Bay, by the way, which is just north of Bamborough. And I would say this is one of my favorites, partly because it isn't as well known. And so, although photographers who go there find it incredibly productive and a place of real beauty, but there isn't an obvious focal point. It's just sand, water, space. In the very, very far distance, you'd be able to see Holy Island here. But really, it's an opportunity to find your own images using just the simple elements of the grass and sand and the ebb and flow of the tide. At the moment, as you see it here, this is low tide. Sometimes the entire basin is full of water at high tide, and as it ebbs and flows, it's always different. So there's wonderful sand patterns, and the wind also makes a big difference. Sometimes you can go and find little pebbles just suspended on sand plinths, thousands of them, and there's debris of timber that is, some of which has come from Norway, on longshore drift and so on. So there's lots to look at and enjoy, and because it's flat, apart from this elevated perspective at Bugle Point, the landscape offers up the sky, and the final kind of magical thing about it is that sunrise and sunset, almost all the way through the year, the sun is there on the horizon because it's so flat around it, and it's a very special place, I think.
I think we have some other. There's a nice. There's a.
Just while you're doing that, I can say that the textures of the coast, I mean, in any coast are interesting. That's Bugle Bay as well. Well done. And that's a completely different kind of image. That, by the way, is actually made with a long lens, probably not with a technical camera, because as you know, using long lenses technical cameras can be quite tricky, and also
doubles the difficulty. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's actually made with a Sony and some kind of 200, 300, but with the setting sun in the summer. But yes, the nature of the coastal environment is for me is fascinating and rich anywhere, and always very intimately connected with the geology of the area. So you can tell a lot about kind of underlying inland landscape very often from the geology that's revealed on the coast. There's a lot of sand in Northumberland on these beaches, but at the same time, and I'm sure there will be one or two examples in the set of pictures that I sent you, there is also extraordinary rock, a combination of metamorphosed rocks.
This in particular I like a lot.
Yeah, this is a basalt, I think, and you can see Bambara again. This is shot early in the morning. That was actually made with a 5x4 film camera for the coastal book back nearly 20 years ago now. And again, it's an example of this is a fairly typical landscape photographer's indulgence photograph, you could say, because it's made with both tilt and swing, so compound movement to get the reasonable focus all the way back. And then you still have to stop down the lens sufficiently to get enough depth of field. It's deliberately quite ambiguous, so you may be able to figure out how tall that cliff face is there, but actually if you stand up, then it's actually only about knee level, the top of it.
Okay, right, okay. I wouldn't have imagined that, no. I mean, I would have thought about head height looking at this, but that's nice.
So a little bit of exaggeration.
Yeah, and then one thing that you mentioned when we first started discussing the area as well is, obviously it's a very tempting area for, more seascape shots and making use of that foreground for, capturing the kind of the width of the ocean that's there, but also the opportunity for the closer details as well, and I think that's it seems to be a particularly kind of rich area for the variety of different things that you can photograph. It's not all just kind of the seascapes.
Absolutely. So this is a sandstone at a beach called Cockleburn, which is just north of Holy Island. Might well be one of the places that we could go to. There's honestly so many, there's no chance of in only a weekend really being able to get to everywhere. But there are lots of of fossils as well. There's fossil-bearing rocks on the same bit of beach, and so that is a total contrast, actually. That sort of formation to the basalt that you find around Bamborough and Dunstanburgh Castle. So as well as these wonderful sandy bays, and Budle is not the only one. There are several more further south, Embleton being a notable example, and also around Alnmouth. So yeah, lots to enjoy, and yeah, we'll hopefully leave people wanting to come back for more.
Yeah, and then there was one image that you shared which definitely stood out from the rest as well, and obviously we won't be. I don't think we'll be seeing these in November necessarily, but again, this just gives a sense of the variety in the area as well.
Exactly. I mean, I think if they are there in November, you've got something to worry about. I'll be sure.
Something's gone seriously wrong.
Exactly. But yeah, this is an example of. This is in fact in the dune slacks just south of Bamborough Castle. So there's an enormous dune system around the castle. And poppies and many other wildflowers grow there, and so it's a particularly good fun exercise for the technical camera using tilt mechanisms. So you need all sorts of conditions to be right for it, and not the least of which is soft and overcast light, but also very little wind. Otherwise, it's completely impossible.
And in terms of so we'll be there towards the end of November, which I personally love that time of year when you're kind of at the turning point from autumn into winter. But what in your kind of knowledge of the area, what do you think we'll be kind of expecting in terms of the photographic day there? You know, what will that kind of look like at that time of year?
Well, the greens will be much more subdued. That's a good thing from my point of view. So in the immediate kind of vicinity of the coast, if we're some way inland. But the coast itself, I think, when you're in the geological part of the coast, one of the interesting points you can make is that it really doesn't matter what time of year you're there. It's much more a question of the weather. Because it could be the winter or the summer, and you won't necessarily see a great deal of difference. This is Colour Nose Point, by the way. So again, really good example of a dolerite, I think dolerite outcrop in the distance, and then these amazing basaltic or dolerite boulders in the foreground with their incredible textures.
Absolutely polished, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and well, they're in the intertidal zone clearly. So. A great opportunity to experiment with some longer exposures and just observing the forms and shapes of the rocks. It is a tricky sort of landscape to be in, because the ground is you need to have reasonable ankles and knees, otherwise it can be very 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 challenging. Setting up a tripod can be interesting as well, but it's a fun challenge as long as you care.
Rewarding.
A very very rewarding place to be. So in answer to your question directly, I think actually the most significant thing is the weather at that time of year, and it can be wonderful. But really what you'd hope for is a mixture of sunlight and cloud. I mean, days without cloud are relatively rare in at that time of year, and in general, if you have a westerly, as I saw 70 or 80% of the time in the UK we have westerly airflows. The East Coast is fortunate in that regard, because it tends to have, by the time that the air is flowed over the Pennines and dropped any rain that's going, we tend to have drier conditions in the east, obviously, than in the west. And so the light, for me, the light in the east and on the coast is particularly special, but it's always down to the weather. So this, for example, was shot in the middle of winter at sunrise. Well, I think it was early February, about 20 years ago, and it was really cold. I seem to remember there's actually a little bit of ice on the beach when I went down. That is not impossible in November, but it's pretty unlikely since we have still there's a trend for temperatures to rise in recent years. So, but the position of the sun and the nature of the weather could easily be much the same. Who knows? That was high pressure. When we have lower pressure and the systems are more mobile, the weather's changing more, the wind will be more of a factor. But you know, it's always interesting. I've never been to Northumberland and haven't been able to photograph.
Yeah, I think the one other time that I've been to Northumberland was around that time as well, and yeah, there's something about that winter atmosphere, and you know, in a way, if you're well prepared for the rain, if it's going to be there, it certainly adds to the atmosphere for that kind of mood at that time of year.
One of the things I do feel, and this has been a significant change since 20 years ago when I took this picture, is that almost certainly if it had rained, I wouldn't have bothered or wouldn't have got out of the car even. Whereas today, and while I wouldn't necessarily welcome having to work in heavy rain, which is, as I say, relatively unusual, I think with modern equipment and with the changing kind of landscape of landscape photography, the language of landscape photography, there are always opportunities, even in the rain, which after all, you know, wets the rock where it might otherwise be dry, makes it more interesting, colors become more saturated, and also we can almost always find some shelter from strong winds as well, because of the nature of the coast, and so I'm not really anticipating that will be a problem, but we'll improvise our way around it if it needs to be.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to it, and I know there are the people who've signed up so far are as well. Yeah, this has been great to kind of build up towards that. And as I was saying to you before we went live with this as well, it feels really nice to have something on the horizon again, and yeah, have something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this, Joe. I hope that well, with the particularly windy weather that we're having at the moment, I hope things pass through okay at your end. And yeah, have you got much other than the bigger projects that you're putting together? Have you got any other workshops and things you know on the radar for this year before ours?
Yes, there's just a couple more, well, 3 or 4, I think, but I have a couple in Cornwall to look forward to. Down at Land's End, one is, and another is on the north coast. And then I have a Lake District workshop, and I have a few one-to-ones, so I keep going with those as well. But if the biggest, there's 2 potential expeditions as well in the summer. One to Svalbard with
very nice
worldwide, which should be fun. I think that's definitely going to go ahead. And then fingers crossed, one to Greenland, which is much more of an expedition type voyage on a small ship with a very small group. So we have a full group, and everybody's hoping it's going to come together, but there are still so many doubts about small ship tours because they've all been postponed for 2 or 3 times now. So just trying to cram all these tours in that people are desperate to do, and still there's uncertainty over crew availability and COVID restrictions in some countries and so on. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. But at least in the UK, I think there's a more confidence that we can
yes.
with our lives.
Hopefully, if we keep our fingers crossed, it seems to feel slightly more optimistic at the moment. So yeah, I hope it can all come together. Before
we go, I was just thinking, did you want to mention Capture One, which I'm presuming that many of your clients are already.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, so we'll be throughout the weekend in November we'll be kind of joining forces to run people through a Capture One workflow as well. So in terms of the making the most of the images that we'll be making, there will be regular sessions where I mean we've done them before, and it's there's a certain expertise that you can bring with that as well from your years working with phase 1 files and making the most from Capture One. So that'll be a kind of core part of the workshop as well to run people through how to how to really bring the best out of the images in Capture One.
And briefly, just in terms of I feel like I'm interviewing you here, I beg your pardon, but the cameras that will be available, it'd be quite interesting to see that, because I'm quite excited to see the XT, for example, which I've only seen once before.
we will be bringing the Phase 1 XT, and we will also, and a range of the IQ4 digital backs, so the 100 and the 150. Maybe we'll be lucky to have an achromatic with us as well. So for the black and white photographers out there, and then certainly be making use of the XT, and with our close relationship with Cambo too. I think we'll have a range of their technical cameras, like the WRS, and also the slightly more adaptable Actus camera as well. So even if people are bringing other mirrorless cameras with them, then we'll have a range of Cambo Actus adapters, so people can make use of that as well. Which, going back to the kind of introducing people to technical stroke view camera photography, the Actus is a really, really nice, kind of gateway into that world, because it's a traditional view camera that's adaptable for all kinds of modern cameras. So we'll definitely be having that out as well.
Yeah, that's exciting, and also that's a nice opportunity for those who feel that they don't necessarily want to jump into Phase 1 to begin with.
Absolutely.
There are less expensive ways forward on that front. And just on finally thinking, there's a few places better to exercise a technical camera than Northumberland, because of those kind of architectural elements and this sort of flat landscape where control of focus is really a big help. So it will be great to have your your absolute specialism with that regard along, we'll be there for with a host of equipment to kind of have alongside that. So I'm looking forward to it a lot, Joe. Fantastic. Same here. Well, thanks very much, Al. Been really nice to catch up.
Thank you.
Too.
It's been nice to see you again, and I'm sure I can't believe we're almost at March already. I'm sure the time will fly before November.
It will. Yeah. Look forward to that.
I look forward to seeing you then, and we'll speak before. But thanks for sharing some images and taking the time to chat.
Pleasure. Really good to talk to you.
Yeah. You too, Joe. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, and thank you everyone for joining. The last thing I have to say is, if you're interested in finding out any more information about the workshop that we're doing with Joe, or even booking a place, then do head to teamworkphoto.com, and you'll find all the information there. And hopefully, if the world is returning to some normality, hopefully this will be the start of more workshops to come. So thanks for joining, and do get in touch if we can help at all.